At my mom's retirement brunch, my brother blocked my chair and said, VIP seating is for real accomplishments. Grab a stool by the bar. Mom laughed and added, don't make this awkward. I said nothing. When the waiter brought over the $2,200 tab with my name on it, I slid it back and said, wrong person, talk to the VIPs. Then I walked out as their faces dropped. My name is Alexander. I'm 32 years old. I work as a data analyst for a logistics company in Chicago, and for most of my adult life, I've been the person my family calls when the money runs short. Not that they ever say thank you. Not that they even acknowledge it most of the time. I'm just there, in the background, reliable and silent, like a utility they've grown accustomed to having, like electricity, like water. Something you notice only when it stops working. My brother Roger is 29. He's an assistant manager at a fitness chain downtown, makes decent money by most standards, drives a leased BMW with custom rims, and somehow always seems to be on the edge of broke. Every month brings a new crisis, car repairs, parking tickets. That time he invested in his friend's protein shake startup that went nowhere. He lives large and falls short, and someone always catches him. That someone is usually me. Mom retired 3 months ago after 30 years as an elementary school teacher. She spent her last decade dreaming out loud about her retirement party, the one she'd throw at Lakeview Manor, the rooftop restaurant overlooking the water where reservations book 6 months out and champagne flows like a river. She talked about it at every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every phone call, the guest list, the menu, the flowers, the jazz band. I heard about that dream roughly 400 times over 5 years. What I didn't hear was any plan for how she'd pay for it. That's where I came in, quietly, the way I always did. 3 months before her retirement date, Mom casually mentioned the venue deposit during a Sunday call. She said it so lightly, like she was talking about buying stamps or picking up milk. $2,000 to hold the date and secure the premium time slot. Roger had promised to split it with her, she said, but his car needed new brakes, and you know how that goes, Alexander. You know how life just hits you sometimes. I wired the deposit that afternoon. No questions asked, no timeline discussed, just done. A month later, the catering contract needed a signature and a credit card on file for the balance. Mom called again, her voice sweet and vague, saying she'd handle it, but could I maybe just put my card down as backup, just in case? Just until Roger got his year-end bonus, which was definitely coming, he'd told her so. I put my card down. I always did. The week before the event, I got an email confirming the final guest count of 42, the premium bar package with top-shelf liquor, the dessert tower with French pastries, and the live jazz trio. The total came to $2,200 auto-charged 3 days before the brunch to the card on file. My card, I never got a thank you email. I never got a call asking if I was okay with the final number or if I wanted to adjust anything. I got a text from Roger 2 days before the event telling me to wear something decent because Mom wanted photos and she didn't want anyone looking sloppy in her retirement album. That was it. That was my acknowledgement. I stared at that text for a long time. It sat on my screen like a bill I couldn't pay, like a statement I couldn't reconcile. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I just saved it in a folder I'd started keeping, a little collection of messages that felt wrong, but that I couldn't quite articulate why. This was normal. This was my role, the dependable one, the fallback, the solution. I thought that's what family did. The restaurant was everything Mom had dreamed about and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Chicago skyline in perfect geometry. The tables were dressed in white linen, so crisp it looked like snow. A jazz pianist played softly near the bar, his fingers dancing over keys in a way that made the whole room feel expensive. Sunlight poured across the polished wood floors like liquid gold, catching on champagne flutes and silver cutlery and the crystals hanging from the light fixtures. It was beautiful, objectively, breathtakingly beautiful. I arrived 10 minutes early, wearing the navy blazer I'd bought specifically for this event. I'd gone to 3 stores before finding one that fit right, that made me look put together, professional, like someone who belonged at a place like this. I wanted to look presentable. I wanted to blend in. I wanted just once to feel like part of the family I was funding. The host greeted me warmly and checked the reservation. Everything was under my credit card, my name, my confirmation number. He smiled and gestured toward the main table near the windows, the one with the best view, the one surrounded by smaller tables already filling with aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends I half recognized from weddings and funerals. I walked toward it slowly, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Hope, maybe, or just the old, tired wish that today might be different, that today I might be seen. Mom was already seated at the center of the table, radiant in a pale pink dress that made her look 10 years younger. She was laughing with Aunt Evelyn, her hands animated as she told some story I'd probably heard before. Roger stood beside her, one hand on the back of the chair directly to her right. The VIP spot, the seat of honor. There was an empty chair on her left, the other VIP spot. I moved toward it, my heart doing something stupid and hopeful in my chest. Roger saw me coming. His smile didn't falter, but his body shifted just slightly, positioning himself between me and the chair. He placed his hand on the backrest, casual, possessive, territorial. I stopped 3 feet away, looked at me, eyebrows raised slightly as if I'd done something confusing, something that needed correction. Then he said it. VIP seating is for real accomplishments, Ben. Grab a stool by the bar. The words landed like stones dropping into still water. Ripples spread outward. People nearby glanced over. I stood there frozen, my hands at my sides, waiting for someone to laugh, to tell me it was a joke, to say something that would make the moment make sense. Instead, Mom looked up. She glanced between us, her expression briefly uncertain, then settling into something smooth and dismissive. Her lips pressed together in that way that meant she was about to smooth things over without actually fixing anything. She smiled at me, that practiced, placating smile. Don't make this awkward, Alexander. Her tone was light, casual, like I was the one causing the problem, like I was the disruption in an otherwise perfect morning. I felt my face go hot, my throat closed up like someone had their hands around it. I wanted to argue, to ask what I'd done wrong, to remind them of the deposit, the card on file, the months of planning I'd quietly funded while they dreamed in public and executed in private. But I didn't. I just nodded. I turned and walked toward the bar area, past tables full of relatives who didn't look up, didn't notice, didn't care. I found a tall stool near the espresso station, tucked into the corner where the servers passed with trays of mimosas and pastries balanced on their shoulders like circus performers. I sat down. The stool was hard, uncomfortable, too high. From where I was, I could see the whole room. I could see Roger laughing, his arm draped over the back of Mom's chair in that easy, confident way he had. I could see her beaming, accepting congratulations from a parade of guests, glowing in the center of attention she'd waited 30 years to have. I could see the empty chair on her left, the one I'd thought was mine. The waiter came by and asked if I wanted anything. I ordered coffee. Black. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else, someone watching this happen from far away. The brunch proceeded in waves of excess. Champagne toasts that went on too long, appetizer platters piled with shrimp and oysters, entrees that looked like paintings, too beautiful to eat but devoured anyway. Roger stood at one point and gave a speech about Mom's dedication, her strength, her legacy as an educator who shaped young minds. Everyone clapped. She cried a little, dabbing at her eyes with a cloth napkin while people murmured about how touching it was. No one mentioned my name. No one acknowledged the person who'd made this possible. No one looked my way. I sat on that stool for 2 hours sipping cold coffee that tasted like regret, watching my family celebrate a party I'd paid for, in a seat I wasn't allowed to occupy, wearing a blazer no one noticed. And then the waiter appeared beside me, holding a black leather portfolio, embossed with the restaurant's gold logo. He leaned in close, his voice low and professional. "Excuse me, sir. The final bill is ready. It's under your name." He opened the portfolio with practiced grace. I saw the number first, $2,247.82. Then I saw my name printed at the top. Card holder on file. Auto authorization processed 3 days prior. Below that, the itemized list. Every drink, every appetizer, every upgrade Roger had added at the last minute. The waiter stood there, waiting, his pen hovering over the receipt line, ready for my signature. I stared at that number. I stared at my name, and something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly, cleanly, like a lock clicking open after years of being stuck. I didn't speak immediately. I just looked at the bill, at the itemized list of everything they'd consumed. The oyster bar appetizer for 8, the filet mignon entrees, the champagne, 3 bottles of it, the extra dessert course Roger had added, some kind of chocolate tower that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, all of it on my card, all of it assumed, all of it taken for granted. The waiter shifted his weight, still waiting. I could feel his polite discomfort, the awkwardness of standing there while I processed something I clearly hadn't expected. I closed the leather portfolio slowly. The leather was cool and smooth under my fingers. I picked it up. I stood, my legs stiff from sitting too long on that uncomfortable stool, and I walked toward the main table. The room had that pleasant hum of satisfaction, of people full and happy, and riding the warm buzz of late-morning champagne. Conversations overlapped. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings. The pianist played something soft and jazzy. Mom saw me first. Her smile was still in place, bright and warm, the same smile she'd been wearing all morning while I sat alone in the corner like a forgotten coat. Roger glanced up, mid-laugh, holding a glass of something golden and expensive looking. I stopped at the edge of the table. I didn't sit. I didn't lean in. I didn't ask for permission to interrupt. I just placed the bill down in front of Roger, gently, deliberately. The leather made a soft sound against the linen. The room didn't go silent. The jazz was still playing. Conversation still hummed at nearby tables. But at that table, at the VIP table, everything stopped. Roger looked down at the portfolio, then up at me. His expression was confused, like I'd handed him something in a foreign language. "What's this?" he asked, his tone casual, genuinely puzzled. I kept my voice even. Calm, the way you'd explain something simple to a child. "The bill." He frowned, his forehead creasing. "Okay, but why are you giving it to me?" Mom's smile faltered. Just a little. Just enough that I noticed the muscles around her mouth tightening. I looked at her, then back at Roger. "Because VIP seating is for real accomplishments," I said quietly. "So I figure real accomplishments can handle real bills." Roger opened the portfolio. His eyes scanned the first line, then the second, then dropped to the bottom where the total sat in bold print. His face went pale. Actually pale, like someone had drained something vital from him. Mom leaned over, looking at the number. Her hand went to her throat. Her mouth opened slightly. "Alexander," she started, her voice tight and controlled. The voice she used when she was trying very hard not to make a scene. This is your card. You said you'd take care of it." "I didn't say anything," I replied, my voice still calm, still even. "You put my card on file. You assumed I'd pay, just like you assumed I'd sit at the bar." The table had gone completely quiet now. Aunt Evelyn's fork hovered in midair. A piece of cantaloupe speared on the tines. Uncle Lawrence set down his glass carefully, like it might shatter. Roger recovered first, his voice rising, defensive, indignant. "Are you seriously doing this right now? At Mom's retirement party? In front of everyone?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just making sure the right people handle this." I looked at the waiter, who had followed me over, his face carefully neutral in that way service industry professionals, perfect over years of witnessing family drama. "Wrong person," I said, gesturing to Roger. "Talk to the VIPs." And then I turned. I walked past the tables, past the relatives who were starting to whisper behind their hands, past the pianist who kept playing as if nothing had happened, past the champagne fountain still bubbling away in the corner. I walked out the door, down the glass-walled hallway where my footsteps echoed, into the elevator with its soft instrumental music. The doors closed with a whisper. I stood there, alone, my reflection staring back at me in the mirrored walls. 3 versions of myself, each one looking slightly different depending on the angle. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. My blazer suddenly felt too tight. But I wasn't crying. I didn't go home right away. I drove to the lake and sat in my car for an hour, watching boats drift across the water, watching joggers pass by with their dogs, watching the city move around me while I sat perfectly still. My phone buzzed 11 times in the first 30 minutes. I didn't look at it. I just watched the lake and breathed and tried to understand what I'd just done. When I finally did check my phone, the messages were exactly what I expected. A cascade of accusation and guilt, each one landing like a small punch. Mom, Alexander, this is unacceptable. We're family. Call me. Roger, dude, what the hell? You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Roger again. Mom's crying. Hope you're happy. Aunt Evelyn. That was very immature, Alexander. I expected better from you. Uncle Lawrence. Family is supposed to support each other. Disappointed in you, kiddo. I read them all. Every word. I let them sink in. Let them try to work on me the way they always had. And then I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through my transaction history, months and months of it, going back 2 years, looking at every charge, every transfer, every automatic payment tied to their names. There were so many, more than I'd consciously realized. Mom's car insurance. I'd added her to my policy 2 years ago when hers lapsed and she didn't want to shop around for new coverage. $140 a month, automatically deducted. Roger's gym membership. He'd asked me to cover it temporarily during a rough month when his commission check was short. That was 14 months ago. $89 a month, every month, never mentioned again. The family streaming subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Spotify Premium, HBO Max, all under my account, all shared freely, all costing money every single month. Another $67 a month. Mom's phone bill, added to my plan after she retired and wanted to cut costs, said it would just be easier if we were all on one plan. $75 a month. The emergency fund transfers. That time Roger's dog needed surgery. That time Mom's water heater died. That time Roger got in a fender bender and couldn't afford the deductible. I did the math in my head, rough numbers that made my stomach turn. Over $3,000 in the last year alone, not counting the party, not counting the birthday dinners I'd quietly picked up the tab for, not counting the emergency grocery runs and gas money, and that time I'd co-signed for Roger's lease when his credit wasn't quite good enough. I sat there in my car staring at those numbers on my phone screen, and I felt something harden inside me. Not anger, not sadness, not even betrayal really, just clarity, cold, clean clarity. I started with the car insurance. I called the company's 24-hour line. I explained I needed to remove a vehicle from my policy effective immediately due to a change in circumstances. The representative was polite and efficient. She asked if everything was okay. I said yes. It took 4 minutes. Then I canceled the gym membership. The automated system made it easy. Press 1 for cancellation. Confirm the member ID. Done. Then I logged into the streaming accounts one by one and changed all the passwords. Random strings of letters and numbers they'd never guess. Then I called the phone company and removed Mom's line from my plan. The representative tried to talk me into a family discount instead. I declined. It took 12 minutes. Each action took less than 15 minutes. Each one felt like removing a small weight from my shoulders. By the time I drove home, by the time I parked in my apartment complex and walked up the 3 flights of stairs, I'd erased them from my monthly financial obligations. My phone buzzed again as I unlocked my apartment door. Roger, why the hell is my gym login not working? I set the phone face down on the counter. I didn't look at it again that night. I didn't respond. Mom called on Tuesday evening, just as I was finishing dinner. Leftovers from a meal I'd cooked for myself, eaten alone at my small kitchen table with the TV on for background noise. I almost didn't answer. I stared at her name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the red decline button, feeling the weight of what that simple action would mean. But I answered. Old habits. Alexander. Her voice was strained, tired, like she'd been crying or preparing to cry. We need to talk. Okay. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, gathering herself, preparing the words she'd probably rehearsed. I don't know what's going on with you, but this needs to stop. This, whatever this is. Roger called me this morning in tears. In tears, Alexander. His car insurance lapsed. Do you know how dangerous that is? What if he gets in an accident? What if he hits someone? I didn't respond. I just listened. She continued, her voice gaining momentum, building towards something. And my phone service got cut off. I had to go to the store and get a prepaid phone like I'm some kind of, like I can't afford basic services. Do you know how humiliating that was? The young man at the counter asked if I needed help setting it up because I'm older. Older, Alexander. Still, I said nothing. You canceled my phone. You canceled the streaming services. Roger can't even go to the gym, and you know he has that back problem. He needs to stay active. What are you trying to prove? I let the silence stretch, let it fill the space between us, let it become uncomfortable. Finally, I spoke. You told me not to make things awkward. What? At the brunch, when Roger blocked my chair. When you laughed, you told me not to make things awkward. Her tone shifted, defensive now, irritated. That was just Roger being Roger. You know how he jokes around. He didn't mean anything by it. He wasn't joking. You're overreacting. There it was, the word I'd been waiting for, the word that always came eventually. I'm not reacting at all, I said, my voice flat and calm. I'm just deciding what I'm willing to pay for. We're family, Alexander. Family helps each other. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. Then Roger can help you with your phone bill. The line went quiet. I could hear her shock, the way my words had landed, the way they'd cut through all the assumptions she'd built her arguments on. Are you punishing me? She asked, her voice smaller now, almost wounded. Because of a seating arrangement? Because of where you sat at a party? No, I said. I'm just done being the person you don't see. I hung up before she could respond. My hand was steady as I set the phone down. My heart was steady too. I'd expected to feel guilty. I'd expected the old familiar weight of family obligation to crash down on me. Instead, I felt light. I spent Saturday building a spreadsheet. It was the kind of thing I did at work all the time. Organizing data, finding patterns, making the invisible visible through columns and formulas. I'm a data analyst. I'm good with numbers. I like structure. I like proof. I like things that can't be argued with because they're simply objectively true. So I pulled every bank statement going back 3 years, every credit card record, every receipt I'd saved, and I'd saved more than I realized. I'm the kind of person who keeps receipts, who files things away, who maintains records even when there's no immediate reason to. I built columns for dates, amounts, categories, and descriptions. I color-coded things by family member. Blue for mom, green for Roger, red for joint expenses that benefited both of them. Car insurance payments, phone bills, streaming services, gym memberships, the party deposit, the catering bill that I'd ultimately walked away from, but that they'd had to scramble to cover. Birthday dinners where I'd quietly picked up the check. Christmas gifts, the co-signed lease, emergency loans that were never repaid, never even acknowledged after the crisis passed. That time I'd flown home for mom's birthday and paid for everyone's dinner at the steakhouse she wanted to try. That time I'd covered Roger's rent when he was between jobs. That time I'd bought mom's medication when she was waiting for her insurance to kick in after retirement. It took me 6 hours. 6 hours of scrolling through records, of remembering moments I'd half forgotten, of seeing patterns I'd been too close to notice before. When I was done, the total sat at the bottom of the sheet in bold red text, $47,293.18, $47,293.18. I stared at that number for a long time. I tried different ways of understanding it. That was a car. That was a down payment on a house. That was a year of living expenses. That was my emergency fund that didn't exist because I'd spent it on them. $47,000 over 3 years, and they'd given me a bar stool. I saved the file. I backed it up to 3 different locations because I'm paranoid about data loss. I exported it to a PDF with all the formatting intact. I attached it to an email draft addressed to Mom and Roger. Subject line, since we're talking about what people owe. Body, just the spreadsheet. No explanation. The numbers would speak for themselves. I didn't send it. Not yet. I just wanted it ready. I wanted the proof organized, undeniable, irrefutable. I wanted something I could point to when the gaslighting started, when they told me I was being dramatic, when they rewrote history to make me the villain. Because I knew what was coming. I knew how this worked. The restaurant called me Monday at 9:03 a.m. I was at my desk at work, reviewing logistics reports, when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. A manager named Michelle. Her voice was professional but tight, strained in a way that suggested this wasn't a call she wanted to make. Mr. Alexander, this is Michelle calling from Lakeview. Manner regarding the outstanding balance from Sunday's event. I set down my coffee. I'm not responsible for that balance. I understand there was some confusion at the event, but your card was on file as the guarantor. When the charge was declined for the final amount, we attempted to process it with the guest who signed the physical check, but that card was also declined. Declined. Roger's card had bounced. Of course it had. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. Michelle hesitated. I could hear papers shuffling in the background. We need to resolve this today. The amount is $2,247.82, plus a failed transaction fee of $35, plus the administrative cost of pursuing collection, which brings the total to $2,132.82. Then I suggest you contact the people who consume the food and beverages. They were quite happy with everything, from what I observed. Mr. Alexander, you signed the initial agreement when you put your card on file. That agreement states, that agreement was for a deposit, which I paid. I didn't agree to cover the final bill after being told I wasn't welcome at the table I'd reserved. I wasn't even given a seat appropriate for a paying guest. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear her breathing, trying to figure out how to handle this. We'll need to pursue this through collections if it's not resolved by end of business today. Pursue whoever you need to. You have Roger's information. You have my mother's information. You have their signatures on the bill. Good luck. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Roger called. I sent it to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail, and again, and again. On the fourth call, I answered. What the hell, Ben? He shouted, loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. The restaurant is threatening Mom with collections. They're saying she owes over $2,000 plus fees. They're going to ruin her credit. She does owe it. She consumed the services. You canceled the card. You left us hanging in front of everyone. The waiter came back 3 times. We had to call Dad to drive over with his credit card. Dad. I hadn't even thought about Dad, who divorced Mom 10 years ago and stayed carefully neutral in all family matters. You told me to sit at the bar. I'm just following your lead. VIPs handle their own bills. This is insane. You're going to ruin Mom's credit over a stupid seat? Over your feelings being hurt? I thought about that for a moment. About the $47,000. About the years of silence. About the phone calls that only came when they needed something. About the bar stool. No, I said quietly. I'm going to let you both handle the life you wanted without me in it. The life where I'm not at the table. The life where I don't count. You're being a child. I'm being clear. For the first time in years, I'm being clear. Mom's crying. She can't understand why you're doing this. Then show her the numbers. What numbers? Check your email. I hung up. Then I opened the email draft with the spreadsheet attached. I read the subject line one more time. Since we're talking about what people owe, and I hit send. The whoosh sound felt final. I moved 3 weeks after the brunch. Not far, just far enough. Just enough distance to feel like a boundary, like a line drawn in the sand. A smaller place, quieter. A 1-bedroom in a building where nobody knew my family, where the neighbors didn't ask questions, where I could just be myself without the weight of old patterns pressing down. No one had the new address. I didn't offer it. The restaurant eventually settled with Mom and Roger for a reduced amount after they agreed to a payment plan. $150 a month for 18 months. I heard about it through Aunt Evelyn, who called once to tell me I'd gone too far, that family was supposed to forgive, that everyone makes mistakes, that I was being cruel. I didn't argue with her. I just thanked her for calling and said I hoped she was well. She hung up frustrated. Mom sent one email after seeing the spreadsheet. It arrived at 2:47 a.m., which meant she'd been up all night looking at the numbers. It was short. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. 4 words. I read them 3 times. I wanted to feel something. Relief, vindication, closure, that warm rush of finally being heard. Instead, I just felt tired. I didn't respond. What would I say? What was there left to say that the numbers hadn't already said? Roger never apologized. He sent one text 2 weeks after the restaurant incident. Hope you're happy now. I deleted it. The quiet that followed was strange at first, unsettling. I'd grown so accustomed to the constant buzz of their needs, their emergencies, their assumptions about my availability and my wallet. The silence felt wrong, like I was forgetting something important. But slowly, over days and then weeks, the quiet became normal, then comfortable, then peaceful. No calls asking for money, no texts about emergencies that somehow always required my credit card. No assumptions about what I'd cover or what I'd agree to if they just asked the right way. Just silence. Clean, clear silence. I started sleeping better. Full nights without my phone buzzing at midnight with crisis messages. I started saying no to things that didn't matter, to invitations that felt like obligations, to people who only called when they needed something. I started building a life that was mine, not theirs, not built around their needs or their comfort or their convenience. 3 months after the brunch, I got a promotion at work, a significant one. Senior data analyst with a team under me, more money, more responsibility, more recognition. I celebrated alone with takeout from the Thai place down the street and a movie I'd wanted to see for months but never had time for. I sat on my couch in my small apartment and ate pad thai straight from the container and laughed at the funny parts and felt for the first time in years, completely content. It was enough. More than enough. I didn't need a table full of people who saw me as a wallet. I didn't need VIP seating at someone else's party. I didn't need family who only remembered my name when they needed something. I just needed to be seen. Really seen. As a person, not a resource. And now when I looked in the mirror, when I sat alone in my quiet apartment, when I made decisions based on what I wanted instead of what they needed, I finally was. I saw myself clearly, and that was worth more than $47,000. That was worth everything.